Good afternoon and welcome to Salon Talks. I'm Alli Joseph and my guests today are actor Billy Crudup and writer-director Bart Freundlich, here to talk about their new film, After the Wedding. The story comes from Danish director Susanne Bier's 2006 film of the same name, but this time the genders of the main characters are different and the plot still holds a gripping mystery. Starring Michelle Williams, Billy Crudup, and Julianne Moore, After the Wedding opens on Friday, August 9th, which is this Friday. Right? Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much
for having us.
Thank you for coming. So this was really interesting. I remember the 2006 version. I looked at some of the trailers just to kind of get a sense of familiarity again and also to see what had changed. And what made you want to remake this particular film for an English-speaking audience, first of all, and besides the emotional content of it?
It really was the emotional content. I guess it was twofold. I mean, I couldn't see why we would remake this movie just because Suzanne's movie is so good. She did it already.
Yeah.
But what was unusual to me is that it is this emotional ride, and it's this exploration of these inner lives of these characters. It's all the stuff I love in movies, the movies I grew up watching that were bigger, kind of Hollywood movies, but still emotional movies like Kramer versus Kramer, Ordinary People, Terms of Endearment. But this had plot and it had character, and it had and there's a producer named Joel Michaels who was so in love with the movie, kept the rights for 12 years, finally kind of found me. And as I started to try to adapt it, I just couldn't find a way in because I didn't want to diminish Suzanne's work or just copy it. It just wasn't, I needed to find a way to put myself in there. And then my wife, who's also in the movie, Julianne, saw it and was really interested in Ralph Lasgard, who plays the part that she ended up playing, just liked his arc. So we started playing around with the idea of what would it be like to change the genders of the three leads, and that kind of ignited it and made it into like a reimagining rather than just a remake.
So since we're on the subject, tell us a little bit about the plot without revealing too many twists.
That's the challenge.
Lots of
this movie.
There are people in it.
There's people, and they do things.
Yeah. Well, Michelle Williams plays. It opens in India. We shot in New York City, Oyster Bay, and India. We call it the
Bermuda Triangle.
The Bermuda Triangle
Classic.
film, the classic Bermuda Triangle film. Michelle Williams plays someone who has kind of devoted her life to working at this orphanage in India and is drawn back to New York City by the promise of a $2 million donation to her orphanage by a big business person played by Julianne. And that's the beginning of the story. That's what gets the plot started. And when she gets to New York, it becomes apparent that there's something else going on and another reason she's been called back. But the unfurling of this mystery is really what the film is about. And the first third of the movie is very much just introducing these characters, understanding the two different really contrasting worlds of India and New York, and the kind of the poverty and the affluence. And then the plot begins to kick into high gear. And what's so unusual is there are three big turns in this movie. And for me, sometimes if you have a very, very emotional movie, I think people think of it as not as entertaining. You know, it's like it's suffering. And in this movie, you have the entertaining and the suffering.
I agree. It's lush to look at. And in fact, there is a wedding.
It's like an Italian or a Jewish dinner.
Yes, extend, and then
the entertaining,
afterwards, yes, the preparation for it, and then the recovery, and then how you manage how the arguments went,
yes.
and the histories that come up. Yeah.
Exactly, and that was something that Julianne, who was a producer on the movie, also, we talked a lot about that. We love these kind of movies where there's just like you really dig into the stuff of life. You know, you have not only like the difficulties, but also what it's like to be at a wedding, and the speeches, and the food, and the beauty of it, and the anticipation. So we wanted to make sure that it held all of that stuff, like the joy and the excitement of the texture of life, as well as these big kind of emotional realizations that I think ends up being the heart of the movie.
See, that wasn't so hard.
Well,
they don't know anything.
It was long.
You guys don't know anything, right?
If you watch the trailer, it does reveal one of the secrets, which is that there's a connection between Michelle's character and Billy's character, Billy's character is married to Julianne in the movie. But so that does reveal that, but there's much more to come from that.
There is. It will surprise you. So, Billy, as he mentioned, you are coupled in the film, your character Oscar, with Julianne Moore, who is Bart's real-life wife, and frequent collaborator. And what about the role for you, other than, you know, I think the inherent value of playing opposite Julianne as actors, grabbed you?
Well, it was elusive to me at first, actually, because he's quite opaque. You know, he keeps everything close to the vest, and he seems really well organized as an adult, which I often don't get offered those kinds of parts. The parts I get are typically complex people who are shattered in some way or another, and either behave poorly or have to recover from behaving poorly. And Oscar seems like he's in pretty good shape, and he doesn't say a whole lot. He's a bit of a stoic and seems like a great dad and a great husband and contributing member of the community. And so when you read that on the page, it seems so straight-laced. I didn't have a way into it. It didn't seem that there was some kind of emotional connection that I could forge. And when Bart began talking to me about those as virtues, about how having Oscar in their lives has become such a foundation for everybody's sanity and clarity and love, and we can set that up in order to then undermine it. That becomes a much more exciting thing. But on the page, it was hard at first for me to quite understand how Oscar was active in it. And sometimes as an actor, you want to know, how is this character activated? What do they do in the film? Because being reactive as an actor is not always so much fun. You do it sometimes. Obviously, you run from monsters or you hide from weather. But the most fun thing is somebody who is in pursuit of something, and life offers a change or it doesn't offer a change, and then they have to manage the emotional consequences of that. So finding a story like this that Bart had navigated so interestingly with this new dynamic, this new power structure, I thought once he explained it to me in a way that I could understand it, because I obviously need some explaining, it became really intriguing to me.
But Billy would say to me that he wished there's one that he wished he could play the backstory. You know, that he could.
Yeah.
Because there's one very crucial moment that is a very active decision that his character has made in the past that is now going to be, that really sets forth this entire narrative. So I imagine that's hard. For me as a writer, it was exciting to imagine this thing that had happened that I didn't ever write. But for Billy as an actor, I guess what you were saying to me, you did say to me, I wish that I could play that. I wish you could show that.
Well, maybe you can tell the studio, you know, in like little, you know, web vignettes that you can tell the other story if they want to give you some more money.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
That's a good idea. You can play
That's why they keep me around.
Yeah, say,
Before or after the wedding?
That's right. It's catchy. I like it. But
the whole timeline.
You've done, you know, tremendous amount of stage and screen, and you seem to be a guy, especially in what you've just said, that rather than going for all the large studio roles, some of which you have done, where you know, you choose these roles where men really wrestle with their choices, rather than just going for the big money roles. And some of my past favorites, I'm going to date myself here, were Will Bloom in Big Fish, and which I saw with my dad. I watched it again the other year. God, I love that movie. And Steve Prefontaine in Without Limits. So what's your most important consideration when you're picking a character to play?
I think you have to have some sort of psychological or emotional connection to whatever journey they're going through. And whether it's a creative connection where you can imagine that kind of world, or a personal connection is totally irrelevant. But you have to be able to see yourself walking around in that person's shoes. And I was telling Bart, I think we were talking about this recently, when I can read a script and I start to drift off and I imagine the character in space, not drift off as in I'm not thinking about the story anymore, but drift off because I've started to internalize parts of it, that's when I know I've got some kind of access into it. And the truth is, I don't ever know when that's going to come. And sometimes you just have to work, so you make that access for whatever it is that you're doing, even if it hasn't caught you. But for the things that really have attracted me, Oscar, as explained by Bart, Steve Prefontaine was such a fascinating figure to me, because he's not the kind of athlete that I would have rooted for growing up. And so for me, it was quite the opposite. It was that I didn't identify with him, so that's a connection. I began, how does a person like that have that kind of confidence? How does a person like that go about their day and not feel flawed and distressed and filled with anxiety? How can they actually run out front in front of people and want to be seen? I feel so much time, I want to recede. Even being an actor, it's a strange Contradiction, yes. I did a play recently, and I would run out of the theater afterwards. I was just so filled with shame, and
it's like being a lawyer.
You kind of expose yourself in a way, right? And
they don't feel shame.
No, that's right. They get money. You have to be able to do that, though, to the point, and take either side. And so I imagine, as an actor, even when you are in a character, and it's so difficult that afterwards you really feel the effect of that emotion.
You do, and having shared something and exposed yourself, even if they're not your own personal vulnerabilities, you're still rendering some idea of what you think it is to be alive. And so that question, that's putting a point of view out there, and a point of view that's just ripe for judgment. And you have to keep steeling yourself as an actor, and I find that one way to do that is to find characters that I have a creative connection to, because then the process of making it becomes the thing that you're involved with, not the product. And for Bart and I, we've been talking about process since the first time we worked together, and that's been a 20-year conversation. So he's been such a great creative collaborator for me, because not only has he indulged my own ideas of what it means to create together, but he's introduced me to other ways of working that have expanded my potential.
Well, that's great, and I think it is always amazing to collaborate with someone for whom you have a lot of respect and a long history. How did you guys meet? I read that you kind of do a little golfing together.
We did.
I gave it up.
Then he quit. Yeah.
You quit?
Yeah.
I saw someone in a sand trap doing this, and I thought, that's ridiculous.
It is a pretty silly, and I have a feeling too I contributed to it, because I get very competitive, and
you?
As you can see from Without Limits, and I don't.
You did not contribute.
I don't cover it well.
You were the draw. We don't have to tell people about our love story, but we met
before or after the wedding.
We actually met. I had been introduced to Billy, this tiny movie that he made called Grind, a long time ago. And then I wanted him to be in The Myth of Fingerprints, my first film, and we met and talked about it, and there was we were going to do that, and then we changed schedules, and he got offered another job, and it just didn't end up happening, but we were always looking for something else. And then my second movie, World Traveler, he starred in, and with Julianne.
What role would he have played in Myth of Fingerprints? Anybody who goes throwback 1997.
Exactly. He would have played
Roy Scheider's
Roy Scheider's part.
He's very young.
Huge range.
Yes.
No, he would have
when
played.
I was younger.
He would have. I think he would have played Julie's brother. Julie's the older brother, who ended up with Hope Davis in the film. That was before I got to work with Michael Vartan, who I love.
I was going to say, it's one of my questions. Totally out of order.
Yeah.
But wait, I'm down here at 9. Myth of Fingerprints. No, that was a stellar cast.
Thank you.
Especially for a first-time
Absolutely.
film. I mean, you had James LeGros. Like, everybody was so
LeGros.
young.
A phenomenal script. And after all of the same things that we're talking about in After the Wedding, he was in possession of his own ambition for that very early on, because that was a very similar kind of slow burn about the history, how we manage our families in the history. Sorry to pull up your movie there.
No, that's awesome
that I wasn't
you
in.
understand.
Are you sorry you didn't do it?
Of course. I mean,
But you had a love story.
He's
so
not
it's
sorry.
Cool. Wait, I have to reintroduce you. So, if you guys are just joining us, this is, of course, Billy Crudup and Bart Freundlich, and they have a new movie, which is called After the Wedding, which we've been discussing, and it is a very interesting remake of the film of the same name from Danish director in 2006. And I met you and Julianne at Sundance in 1997 with The Myth of Finger. We are all very old, well, just me, really. And you guys had just started dating. And I remember I was sitting interviewing her for like IndieWire or something, and she was getting her makeup done, and she was so excited about your relationship? It's adorable. Now they got kids who are 17 and 20, one of whom was a PA on this film.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, my son, he's going to be 22
awesome.
this year. He wants to be, he's studying to be a film composer, and he's also a basketball player and plays basketball at Davidson College.
Oh, all right. My niece just started there.
Oh my God! Well, D1 school, Steph Curry went there. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just telling the truth.
By the way, it's awesome.
Yeah,
and
he was a walk-on. He's a great guy. And my daughter. So
and also worked on Trust the Man.
Also, well, did he work on Trust the Man?
Or what
he
was
worked. He worked on Wolves, my previous movie.
Oh, right, he
Michael
worked on
Shannon
Wolves,
and
that's
Carla
right.
Gugino. And he was a camera PA, and then he very quickly realized, oh, I don't want to do this. This is terrible. And then we set our sights on our daughter, who was a PA on After the Wedding, only for 2 weeks. And that was enough to drive her out of the
That was
business.
it. So no kids in the business. How about your son?
Yeah, I should have, were I a director, I would have hired him to be a PA so that he could have the same revulsion to the experience of movie making. But no, he's thoroughly interested in the creative arts, for sure. Yeah.
Is he acting?
Acting, directing, writing. In fact, I recently starred, I don't know if it'll be out in the theaters, but in his short film for his freshman year. Called Parchment. So if you see that,
That's a good title.
13, it is a good title, and it was experimental film. He's actually a really ambitious, creative, intelligent, like joyful performer and creator.
I'd like to see that.
He writes all the time. He's far more industrious than I am, and I think he's going to be
He's got
in the
future.
business.
Did he get an A? I mean, look who
My
started
performance got an A
yes.
from me. He did. He did, yes. They don't give grades at this school in that same way.
Starring unknown.
They write up a big...
and introducing.
Yes. I think we did do that.
Introducing Dad.
I actually do think we did do that, yeah.
So we are in the steamiest part of the New York summer, and by birth, at least, we're all New Yorkers.
Yep.
Long Island, New York City, New York City schools. So growing up, I feel like in this steamy hole gives people really like interesting sensory memories. And I know you moved when you were young, but I was wondering, if either of you guys have something that really stuck with you about New York growing up, and especially I know you used some locations in this film that I remember from growing up in Little India, down in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
A couple of farmers market scenes in Union Square. Grew up going there.
Yep.
No, you remember nothing?
Oh, I do.
Oh, you
yeah,
do?
no, of course.
Times Square before it was gentrified.
Well, yes. I mean, we were, living on Long Island, but that was the weekend obligation, is to make your way into Manhattan. And I remember my dad, who sort of like. Money would come and go with my dad, so all of a sudden he would have a whole pile of money that he would want to spend for somebody's birthday. And my brother convinced him to give us a helicopter ride in one of those bubble helicopter rides around the Statue of Liberty.
I've never heard this story.
Yeah. So that's the first thing that came to mind then. And then the lights would go out for a couple months.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, but you got the
helicopter ride to remember, to reflect upon while you're in the dark.
As long as you didn't get sick.
Did not get sick.
We did.
That would be great to see from below.
What a memory!
Splash.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine were less helicoptery.
Yeah. I lived large.
They were.
And then dark.
I grew up in Gips Bay, which is just certainly near here. My memories were Madison Square Garden, because I grew up going to Knicks games, and Yankee Stadium. I got mugged 5 times.
But it was at the same time?
It was 5 times in a row. One day.
Give me another one. Give me
This
more.
is pre-Julianne, New York.
Yeah, it was. It was Ed Koch actually. So it was. No, I did. But they were the good old school, like decent, clean muggings. It was like where you weren't. It was just like, hey kid, give me your money.
Nothing
Yeah,
dirty.
and it was it. Can I get a ride on your bike? And I'm like, no, it's my bike. It's actually my neighbor's. He's like, no, I want to ride. I'm like, no, I can't give you. Get off. And then that was it. And then I would watch them ride away, and I'd sprint back. And I remember my dad.
You chased?
No, away.
Oh, it's like, damn, wow.
I'm not an idiot.
Yeah. Where's that New York that don't look anyone in the eye? Walk with purpose. This is all the things you learn as a
But I remember. I mean, I love New York City, and I'm so happy I get to bring my kids up here. I feel like you kind of feel set to go anywhere from
Me too.
here. Yeah, and I loved it. I went to school on 16th Street with you, of course.
With me.
First grade and third grade, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And we probably ate lunch in the cafeteria together.
Maybe.
Chicken a la king, possibly.
I'm sure
Throwing
engaging
up in the
conversations
bubble.
too.
Yeah. Well, New York. I liked some of the locations I saw in this film, including the inborn New Yorker digs at New Jersey, where I now live.
Oh, really?
That was
Julianne
funny.
says
Yeah, she did.
in the film,
Yeah, there was
look,
one
you can
joke.
see New Jersey. It's so clear today. Why anyone would want to, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd want to. Yeah, it was.
I don't condone that comment
no,
for all my friends and fans in New Jersey.
It was not. Yeah, it was not us condoning that. It was a depiction of New York sort of regional attitude of superiority that I've witnessed, but certainly do not have.
So I have to take a super quick serious turn. We are news, we are Salon, and we love to have talents like yourselves on, but of course it's been a rough week again here in America, and I asked why Julianne wasn't able to be with us, and you said that she has been involved in working against gun violence.
Yeah,
Can you talk about
for a very long time. Yeah, it has. I mean, she's very involved with Everytown for Gun Safety, which is an awesome organization that is doing everything they can, along with several other organizations, to try to get legislation passed to keep us safe. My daughter works for Students Demand Action, and they were both down in D.C. this last week while these two, horrific shootings were going on. And, and I work with them occasionally, making PSAs, doing whatever I can do, just trying to push this boulder up the hill to, and I feel like there is progress. Julie is particularly dogged about this, and one thing that she really wants to get the message out about is just the way in which we talk about this. We need to talk about gun safety. It's not gun control, because this is about gun safety. This is not control is such a negative word, and it's not what we're really looking to do. It's just common sense gun laws. So I am very exceedingly proud of her and my daughter for their work on this, and want to get more and more involved and encourage as many people to get involved as are willing.
If anyone wants to get involved with this particular organization,
yeah, they're called Everytown for Gun Safety, and if she were here, she could tell you what what to text. But Everytown for Gun Safety, and they're about common sense legislation. It's stuff that just keeps us, regardless of our political affiliations, us all safe.
Absolutely, so important, and it really hits home when you have children, especially so.
Absolutely.
So their film, After the Wedding, opens this Friday nationwide, or?
It's in New York and LA this Friday, then it's going to begin to slowly roll out, and by Labor Day it'll be in about 50 cities on about 300 screens.
All right, wonderful. Well, thanks you guys so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Like
It certainly was.
reminiscing.
Yeah, I know. Let's get our yearbook.
Check out After the Wedding this Friday, August the 9th in New York and LA, and after that nationwide. Have a great afternoon.